The morning sun streamed through the tall glass windows of the corporate headquarters as employees hurried past with their coffee cups and briefcases. Nobody paid much attention to the small figure wandering through the marble lobby, clutching a worn teddy bear and looking around with wide, curious eyes. Emma Rodriguez was only 4 years old, but she had already learned that grown-ups were always too busy to notice little people like her. Her mother worked as a cleaning lady in this big building, and sometimes when there was no babysitter, Emma had to come along and sit quietly in the corner while her mama cleaned the offices. Today was different, though. Emma's mother, Maria, had gotten a call that her other daughter was sick at school and she had to leave quickly. In the confusion, little Emma slipped away from the small break room where she was supposed to wait. The building was like a maze to her, full of long hallways and doors that all looked the same. As Emma walked down one particularly quiet hallway, she noticed that this floor felt different from the others. The carpet was softer under her tiny feet, and everything looked fancier. There were paintings on the walls and plants that were bigger than she was. She passed by several offices where people in suits were talking on phones or typing on computers, but none of them seemed to see her. At the end of the hallway, there was a door that was different from all the others. It was bigger, made of dark wood, and had gold letters on it that Emma couldn't read yet. But what caught her attention wasn't the door itself. It was the fact that it was slightly open, and she could hear someone inside talking softly on the phone. Emma had been taught to be polite and to always knock before entering any room, so she did what seemed natural to her. She walked up to the impressive door and knocked 3 times with her tiny fist. The voice inside stopped talking. After a moment, she heard footsteps approaching the door. When it opened fully, Emma found herself looking up at a very tall man in a dark blue suit. He had gray hair and kind eyes, but he looked surprised to see her standing there. The man was Robert Chen, the chief executive officer of one of the city's largest technology companies. He had been in the middle of an important phone call with investors when he heard the soft knocking. He had expected to see his secretary or perhaps one of his vice presidents. Instead, he found himself looking down at a little girl with pigtails and a teddy bear. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Robert had built his company from nothing over 20 years, had given presentations to thousands of people, and had negotiated deals worth millions of dollars. But he had never had a 4-year-old knock on his office door before. Emma tilted her head and looked up at him with the direct, honest gaze that only small children possess. She wasn't intimidated by his expensive suit or the impressive office behind him. To her, he was just another grown-up, and she had something important to ask him. "Will you be my friend?" she said simply, holding her teddy bear a little tighter. Robert was completely taken aback. In his world of corporate meetings and business deals, friendship wasn't something that was ever discussed so directly. People wanted things from him: contracts, approvals, investments. But this little girl was asking for something he hadn't thought about in years. He glanced around the hallway, wondering where she had come from and if her parents were nearby. The executive floor was restricted access, and security was usually very tight. How had such a small child made it all the way up here? "Where are your parents, sweetheart?" Robert asked gently, stepping out of his office and kneeling down to be at her eye level. Emma's lower lip trembled slightly. "My mama is working somewhere in the big building. She cleans the offices to make them pretty. But I got lost and I can't find her." A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away with the back of her hand. Robert felt something stir in his chest that he hadn't experienced in a long time. His own children were grown up now, living in different cities with their own careers and families. His days were filled with spreadsheets, conference calls, and strategic planning sessions. When was the last time someone had asked to be his friend, without wanting something else in return? "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Emma," she replied. "And this is Mr. Snuggles," she added, holding up her teddy bear. "He's my best friend, but he doesn't talk much. That's why I need more friends." Despite the seriousness of finding this lost child, Robert couldn't help but smile. There was something refreshing about Emma's honesty and simplicity. In his high-pressure world, everyone spoke in corporate jargon and hidden meanings. But this little girl said exactly what she meant. "Well, Emma," Robert said, "I think we should find your mama first, and then we can talk about being friends. Would that be okay?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "You're very tall," she observed matter-of-factly. "Are you a giant?" Robert laughed. really laughed. For the first time in months. No, I'm just a regular person who happens to be tall. And you're just the right size for a 4-year-old. As he stood up and took Emma's small hand in his, Robert realized that this unexpected encounter had already changed something in his day. The urgent phone calls and pressing meetings suddenly didn't seem quite as important as making sure this brave little girl found her way back to her mother safely. Little did either of them know that this simple question, "Will you be my friend?" would set in motion a series of events that would transform not just their lives but the lives of countless others. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest gestures, and Emma's innocent request for friendship was about to prove that truth in ways neither of them could have imagined. Robert led Emma down the hallway, her small hand warm in his much larger one. With each step he found himself seeing his company's headquarters through completely different eyes. What had always seemed like an efficient, professional environment now felt cold and intimidating when viewed from the height of a 4-year-old. As they walked toward the elevator, several of Robert's employees did double takes at the unusual sight of their CEO holding hands with a small child. His personal assistant Janet nearly dropped her stack of papers when she saw them approaching. "Mr. Chen," Janet stammered, "I didn't know you had a meeting with, She looked down at Emma with confusion. "This is Emma," Robert explained calmly. "She's looking for her mother, who works somewhere in the building. Can you please call security and ask them to help us locate her? Her mother's name is—" He looked down at Emma encouragingly. "Maria Rodriguez," Emma said proudly. "She makes everything clean and shiny. She's the best mama in the whole world." Janet nodded quickly and reached for her phone. Robert could see the questions in her eyes, but he appreciated that she didn't ask them in front of Emma. In the corporate world, unusual situations were usually handled quietly and efficiently, with minimal disruption to business operations. While Janet made the call, Robert found himself studying Emma more closely. Despite being lost in a strange building, she didn't seem frightened. Instead, she was looking around with curiosity, taking in the details of her surroundings with the intense focus that children bring to everything new. "Your office is very big," Emma observed, looking back toward the direction they had come from. "Do you have toys in there?" Robert chuckled. "No toys, I'm afraid. Just computers and papers and books about business." "That sounds boring," Emma said with the brutal honesty of childhood. "Why don't you have toys? Don't you like to play?" The question hit Robert unexpectedly hard. When was the last time he had played? Really played, not just attended social events or participated in corporate golf tournaments that were really just networking opportunities in disguise. He couldn't remember. "I guess I forgot how to play," he admitted quietly. Emma looked up at him with concern. "That's very sad. Everyone should know how to play. I could teach you if you want. Mr. Snuggles is very good at playing Tea Party and hide and seek." Before Robert could respond, Janet hung up the phone and approached them. "Security is looking for Mrs. Rodriguez now," she reported. "They said it might take a few minutes to locate her since the cleaning staff covers many different floors." Emma's face fell slightly. "Is Mama in trouble because I got lost?" Robert knelt down to her level again, something he found himself doing naturally now. "No, sweetheart. Your mama isn't in trouble. Sometimes people just get separated in big buildings like this. It happens to grown-ups too." "Really?" Emma asked hopefully. "Really," Robert confirmed. "In fact, why don't we wait in my office? I bet Mr. Snuggles would like to see what a CEO's office looks like." Emma's eyes lit up. "What's a CEO?" "It means I help make decisions about the company," Robert explained as they walked back toward his office. "Like what kind of decisions?" Robert found himself pausing. How do you explain quarterly earnings and market strategies to a 4-year-old? "Well, I decide things like how we can help people with our computers and technology." "Do you help people who are sad?" The question was so direct and unexpected that Robert wasn't sure how to answer. His company developed software solutions for businesses, created efficiency systems, and generated profits for shareholders. But did they help people who were sad? "We try to make things easier for people," he said carefully. Emma nodded as if this made perfect sense. "That's good. Making things easier is like being a friend." As they entered Robert's spacious office, Emma's eyes grew wide with wonder. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the polished conference table and leather furniture. "Wow," Emma breathed. "You can see everything from up here." It's like being in a castle in the clouds. Robert looked out the windows with fresh eyes. He had chosen this office for its impressive view, its ability to intimidate competitors and impress clients. But Emma saw magic where he had seen strategy. Emma walked over to his desk and carefully placed Mr. Snuggles on the leather chair. "Mr. Snuggles wants to sit in the important chair," she explained seriously. "He's never been in a castle before." Robert watched as Emma explored his office with respectful curiosity, touching things gently and asking permission before picking anything up. There was a dignity in her politeness that impressed him. Despite being only 4 years old, she carried herself with a natural grace that many adults lacked. "Are you lonely up here in your castle?" Emma asked suddenly, turning to face him. The question stopped Robert cold. Lonely. He was surrounded by people all day. Employees, clients, business partners. His calendar was packed from morning until evening. How could he be lonely? But as he looked around his office with Emma's question echoing in his mind, he realized that being surrounded by people wasn't the same thing as having friends. Most of his interactions were transactional. People wanted his approval, his signature, his decision on various matters. When was the last time someone had simply wanted to spend time with him for no reason other than friendship? "Sometimes," he admitted quietly. "Sometimes I think I might be a little lonely." Emma nodded sagely. "That's why you need friends. Friends make the lonely go away." At that moment, Janet appeared in the doorway with a worried-looking woman in a cleaning uniform. The woman's eyes were red from crying, and she looked around the impressive office with obvious anxiety. "Emma," Maria Rodriguez cried out, rushing forward to gather her daughter into her arms. "Mia, you scared Mama so much. I looked everywhere for you." Emma hugged her mother tightly. "I'm sorry, Mama. I got lost, but I found a new friend. His name is Mr. Chen, and he lives in a castle, and he's going to learn how to play again." Maria looked up at Robert with a mixture of gratitude and fear. She recognized him from the company newsletters and knew exactly who he was. Her daughter had somehow made her way to the CEO's office and asked to be his friend. "I am so sorry, Mr. Chen," Maria began in heavily accented English. "I had to leave quickly because my older daughter was sick at school, and Emma, she must have. I never meant for her to bother you." Robert held up his hand gently. "Please don't apologize. Emma wasn't bothering me at all. In fact, she brightened my entire day." Maria Rodriguez stood in the impressive office, her work uniform a stark contrast to the expensive furniture and polished surfaces around her. She had worked in this building for 3 years, always staying invisible, always keeping her head down. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined her youngest daughter would end up in the CEO's personal office. "Please sit down," Robert offered gently, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. "Both of you," Maria hesitated. In her experience, when people in suits asked you to sit down, it usually meant bad news, but Emma tugged on her hand and smiled up at her reassuringly. "It's okay, Mama. Mr. Chen is nice. He wants to be my friend." Robert couldn't help but smile at Emma's simple introduction. "Your daughter is remarkable, Mrs. Rodriguez. She has a gift for making people feel at ease." Maria sat down carefully on the edge of the chair, ready to jump up at a moment's notice if needed. "She is a good girl, but sometimes too friendly with strangers. I tell her not everyone wants to talk to little children." "Well, today I needed someone exactly like Emma," Robert said, settling into his own chair. "She reminded me of some important things I had forgotten." Emma had retrieved Mr. Snuggles from the CEO chair and was now looking around the office again. "Mr. Chen, why don't you have any pictures of your family?" "My mama has pictures of me and my sister Sophia everywhere." Robert glanced at his desk, which was indeed bare of personal photographs. There were awards, business magazines, and important documents, but nothing that showed his life outside of work. He did have family photos somewhere, probably in a drawer or on his phone, but he had never thought to display them. "That's a very good question, Emma. I guess I never thought about it. But how do you remember what your family looks like if you don't see their pictures?" Emma asked with genuine concern. Maria gently touched her daughter's shoulder. "Emma, maybe we should not ask so many questions. Mr. Chen is a very busy man." "Actually," Robert interjected, "I find Emma's questions quite refreshing. In my line of work, people usually ask me about profit margins and market share. No one has asked me about my family pictures in, well, ever." He turned to Emma with renewed interest. "I have 2 children, but they're all grown up now. They live far away with their own families. Do you miss them? Emma asked. The simple question hit Robert like a physical blow. Did he miss them? He provided for them financially, sent birthday cards and Christmas gifts, and they exchanged brief phone calls every few weeks. But missing them? When was the last time he had really thought about how much he wished they lived closer? Yes, he said quietly. I think I do miss them very much. Emma nodded approvingly. Then you should call them tonight and tell them you love them. That's what Mama does when she misses someone. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she listened to this conversation. Her daughter's innocent wisdom was touching something in this powerful man that she could see but didn't fully understand. Emma, Mija, Maria said softly, we should go now. Mr. Chen has important work to do. But Mama, Emma protested, we haven't finished talking about being friends. And I haven't shown him how to play yet. Robert found himself reluctant to let them leave. The afternoon had taken such an unexpected turn, and he realized he was genuinely enjoying this unusual conversation. When was the last time someone had wanted to teach him something, just for the joy of sharing knowledge? Mrs. Rodriguez, Robert said carefully. I hope you don't mind me asking, but how long have you worked here? 3 years, sir, Maria replied. I work the night shift cleaning offices. Usually Emma stays with my neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, but she is sick today and my babysitter she canceled at the last minute. Robert nodded thoughtfully. And you enjoy your work here? Maria looked puzzled by the question. It is a good job, sir. The pay is fair and the work is steady. I am grateful for it. Emma, who had been listening to this exchange, suddenly spoke up. Mama works very hard. She cleans all the messy offices and makes them beautiful again. She's like a magic fairy, but with cleaning supplies instead of a wand. Robert smiled at Emma's description, but he found himself thinking about Maria's situation. A single mother working night shifts, juggling childcare problems, doing necessary but largely invisible work that kept his company running smoothly. How many employees like Maria did he have? How many of them did he really know anything about? Mrs. Rodriguez, may I ask you something? Robert said. What would make your job easier or better? Maria looked startled by the question. I don't understand, sir. I'm asking for your honest opinion. You see this company from a different perspective than I do. What could we do better? Maria glanced nervously at Emma, then back at Robert. I don't think it's my place to say, sir. Please, Robert insisted gently. I would genuinely like to know. After a long moment, Maria took a deep breath. Well, sir, sometimes the offices are left very messy. People leave food containers and spill things and don't clean up. It makes our job much harder, and we have many offices to clean in one night. Also, the employee break room on the 5th floor. The coffee machine has been broken for 2 months, but no one fixes it because it's just for the cleaning staff. Robert made mental notes of everything Maria was saying. These were operational issues that would never reach his executive meetings, but they directly affected the working conditions of his employees. And, Maria continued, gaining confidence, sometimes it would be nice if there was a place where employees like me could bring our children in emergencies. I know other people have this problem too. Mrs. Chen from accounting. She had to miss 3 days last month when her son was sick and couldn't go to school. Emma had been listening to this conversation with interest. Mama, maybe Mr. Chen could make a place for kids to play while their mamas work. Like a playroom in the castle. Robert looked at Emma with amazement. Out of the mouths of babes, he thought. Emma, that's actually a brilliant idea. Maria looked shocked. Oh no, sir, I didn't mean to suggest. I know that would cost money. Mrs. Rodriguez, Robert interrupted gently. Good ideas cost money, but they also save money and make people happier. Your daughter might have just solved a problem I didn't even know we had. Emma beamed with pride. See, Mama? I told you Mr. Chen was nice. Friends help each other think of good ideas. As Robert looked at Emma's proud smile and Maria's amazed expression, he felt something shifting inside him. For years, he had been focused on big-picture strategies and long-term growth plans. But these two people in his office were showing him that sometimes the most important changes started with the smallest, most human concerns. The following Monday morning, Robert Chen sat in his office staring at a framed photograph he had placed on his desk over the weekend. It showed his son and daughter from their last visit home 2 years ago. A visit that had lasted only 3 days and had been filled with awkward conversations and polite small talk. Emma's question about family pictures had haunted him all weekend. Janet knocked on his door and entered with his usual morning briefing. She paused when she saw the photograph, then the small teddy bear sitting in the corner of his desk, a gift Emma had left behind to keep him company until they could meet again. "Sir, you have the quarterly board meeting at 9, followed by the merger discussion with Patterson Industries at 11, Janet began, but Robert held up his hand. "Before we start with the schedule, I need you to set up a meeting with the facilities manager and the head of human resources. I want to discuss creating an emergency childcare facility in the building." Janet blinked in surprise. "An emergency childcare facility?" "Yes, for employees who have childcare emergencies. I also want to report on all the maintenance issues that have been reported by the cleaning staff in the past 6 months, particularly the broken coffee machine on the 5th floor. Janet made notes quickly, though Robert could see the confusion in her eyes. In 5 years of working as his assistant, he had never asked about broken coffee machines or childcare issues. "Also," Robert continued, "I want to schedule regular meetings with representatives from different departments. Not just the executives. I want to talk to people from all levels of the company. Cleaning staff, maintenance, security, administrative assistants. I want to understand how we can make this workplace better for everyone." "Of course, sir. May I ask what prompted this initiative?" Robert smiled, thinking of a little girl with pigtails and an enormous capacity for friendship. "Let's just say I received some valuable consulting advice from an expert in human relations." Later that morning, Robert found himself walking through parts of the building he had never visited before. He stopped by the employee break room on the 5th floor and saw the broken coffee machine Maria had mentioned. It was an old model, probably expensive to repair, so it had been easier to just leave it broken. But Robert imagined Maria and her colleagues working long night shifts without access to fresh coffee, and suddenly the repair costs seemed insignificant. He made his way to the maintenance department and found Supervisor Jim Martinez organizing work orders for the day. "Mr. Chen," Jim stood up quickly, clearly surprised to see the CEO in his workshop. "Is there something I can help you with?" "Actually, yes. I wanted to ask about the coffee machine on the 5th floor. How long would it take to get that fixed?" Jim looked puzzled. "The one in the night staff break room? Well, it's been on the work order list for about 2 months, but it keeps getting pushed down because we prioritize the executive floors and customer areas first." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "What if I told you that broken coffee machine is now a top priority?" "Sir, I want it fixed today, and I want you to personally review all maintenance requests from the cleaning staff and night workers. If there are issues affecting their working conditions, I want them addressed immediately." Jim's expression shifted from confusion to respect. "You got it, sir. I'll take care of it personally." As Robert walked back to his office, he found himself noticing things he had never seen before. A security guard who looked tired from working a double shift. An administrative assistant struggling with a broken printer. Small problems that affected real people but never made it into executive briefings. That afternoon, Robert did something unprecedented. He left his office at 4 o'clock and went home to his empty house. For the first time in months, he called his daughter Sarah in Seattle. "Dad?" Sarah's voice was surprised when she answered. "Is everything okay? You never call on weekdays." "I'm fine, sweetheart. I wanted to hear your voice. How are the kids?" "They're good. Tommy just lost his first tooth and little Grace started walking last week. I sent you videos, but I wasn't sure if you had time to watch them." Robert felt a pang of guilt. He probably had received those videos but had been too busy to look at them properly. "Send them again. I want to see everything. And Sarah, I miss you." "I miss all of you." There was a long pause. "Dad, are you sure you're okay? You sound different." "I think I'm starting to remember what's really important," Robert said quietly. "I love you, sweetheart." "I love you too, Dad," Sarah replied, her voice soft with emotion. The next morning, Robert arrived at work to find a small crowd gathered near the elevator on the ground floor. As he got closer, he could see Emma in the center of the group, chatting animatedly with several employees while Maria watched nervously from the side. "And this is Mr. Snuggles," Emma was saying to a fascinated group of office workers. "He's very good at listening to problems and giving hugs." When Emma saw Robert approaching, her face lit up like sunshine. "Mr. Chen, you came to see me." "Hello, Emma," Robert said, kneeling down to her level as had become his habit. "What are you doing here today?" Mama's friend Mrs. Garcia is still sick, so Mama had to bring me to work again. But today I'm not lost. I know exactly where your castle is. Maria hurried over, clearly embarrassed. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chen. I know this isn't professional. But I had no other choice. Mrs. Rodriguez, Robert interrupted gently. Starting next week, we're going to have a solution for situations like this. I'm having an emergency child care room set up on the second floor. It will be staffed and safe for employees who need to bring their children to work occasionally. The small crowd that had gathered began murmuring with excitement. Robert realized that many of his employees faced similar childcare challenges. Emma clapped her hands together. You made the playroom! You really are the nicest friend ever. Actually, Emma, it was your idea, Robert replied. You're the one who thought of it. Emma beamed with pride, and Robert noticed how her joy seemed to spread to everyone around them. Several employees were smiling, and the usual rushed, stressed atmosphere of Monday morning felt lighter somehow. Mr. Chen, Emma said seriously, can I show you something else that might help people? Of course. Emma took his hand and led him toward the information board near the elevators. See, all these papers are very boring and full of big words. But what if you had pictures too? My mama says pictures help people understand things better, especially people who don't read English so good. Robert looked at the employee bulletin board with fresh eyes. Emma was right. It was covered with dense text about policies and procedures, formatted in corporate language that probably intimidated more people than it helped. You know what, Emma? That's another excellent idea. Would you like to be my special consultant on making things more friendly for everyone? Emma's eyes grew wide. What's a consultant? Someone who gives very good advice and helps solve problems. Yes, Emma said immediately. I would love to be a consultant. Mr. Snuggles can help too. He's very smart about feelings. As Robert stood there in the lobby, surrounded by employees who were chatting and laughing instead of hurrying past each other in silence, he realized that Emma's simple request for friendship was creating ripples that extended far beyond their initial meeting. Sometimes the most profound changes really did begin with the smallest steps. 3 months after Emma first knocked on his door, Robert Chen was walking through his company's newly established emergency child care center. The bright, cheerful room buzzed with the sound of children playing while their parents worked elsewhere in the building. Colorful murals decorated the walls, and age-appropriate toys and books filled every corner. Mr. Chen, a familiar voice called out. Emma ran toward him, her face glowing with excitement. She had become a regular visitor to the child care center, not because Maria needed the service every day, but because Emma had somehow become the unofficial welcome committee for new children. Hello, Emma. Robert smiled, accepting the enthusiastic hug she always gave him. How are things going here today? Very good. We have 3 new friends today. Tommy's mama works in the numbers department, and his babysitter got sick. Jessica's daddy is in a big meeting upstairs, and little Marcus is here because his grandma had to go to the doctor. Robert marveled at how Emma naturally took care of the other children, showing them around and helping them feel comfortable. The child care center had been operational for only 6 weeks, but it had already been used by over 40 families during various emergencies. Mrs. Henderson, the certified child care supervisor they had hired, approached them with a warm smile. Emma has been wonderful today, Mr. Chen. She has a natural gift with the younger children. That doesn't surprise me at all, Robert replied, watching Emma carefully help a shy 2-year-old build with blocks. How are the parents responding to the program? Overwhelmingly positive. We've had several employees mention that knowing this resource is available has reduced their stress significantly, and productivity has actually increased in several departments because people aren't having to call in sick or leave early as often. Robert nodded with satisfaction. The child care center had been expensive to set up, but the return on investment was proving to be substantial in ways that went far beyond simple financial metrics. Emma tugged on his jacket. Mr. Chen, can you come see our suggestion box? We've been collecting ideas from all the children about how to make the building even more friendly. She led him to a colorfully decorated box with a slot in the top. Tommy suggested that the elevators should play music. Jessica thinks the hallways need more plants, and Marcus wants picture books in all the waiting areas so kids have something to do when they visit their parents at work. Robert examined the handwritten suggestions, some in children's scrawling letters, others dictated to Mrs. Henderson. Each idea was simple but thoughtful, focused on making the environment more welcoming and less intimidating. These are excellent suggestions. Emma, what do you think we should implement first? Emma considered this seriously. The plants, because they make the air cleaner and they're pretty to look at. Mama taught me that plants are like friends. They make everything feel more alive. Over the following weeks, Robert found himself implementing not just the children's suggestions, but expanding his focus on employee welfare in ways he had never considered before. The broken coffee machine had been fixed within days of his conversation with Jim Martinez. But that had been just the beginning. He had established monthly listening sessions where employees from all levels could bring concerns directly to leadership. He had upgraded the employee break rooms on every floor. He had instituted a program where janitorial staff could report maintenance issues directly to priority repair lists instead of waiting for issues to trickle up through layers of bureaucracy. Most surprisingly to everyone, including himself, Robert had started eating lunch in the company cafeteria instead of having meals brought to his office. This simple change had led to dozens of informal conversations with employees he had never met, despite working in the same building for years. One Tuesday afternoon, as Robert sat in the cafeteria sharing a table with employees from the accounting department, Maria Rodriguez approached hesitantly. "Excuse me, Mr. Chen," she said quietly. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" "Of course, Mrs. Rodriguez, please sit down." Maria sat carefully, still somewhat amazed that she could simply walk up and talk to the CEO. "I wanted to thank you for everything you've done. The child care center, the repairs, the way you've been listening to people. It's changed everything for so many of us," Robert smiled. "Your daughter changed everything for me, Mrs. Rodriguez. I should be thanking you for raising such a remarkable little girl." "She asks about you every day," Maria said. "She considers you her very best grown-up friend. But I wanted you to know, the other employees, we see what you're doing. You've made this place feel like a community instead of just a job." That evening, Robert called both of his children. It had become a weekly tradition, these longer conversations where they actually talked about their lives instead of exchanging polite updates. Sarah had started sending him daily photos of the grandchildren, and his son David had invited him to visit Seattle next month for Tommy's birthday party. "You know, Dad," Sarah had said during their last call, "you sound happier than you have in years." "What's changed?" "I made a new friend," Robert had replied. "She taught me that friendship is about paying attention to what really matters." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Robert's office. Janet announced that a reporter from the local business journal wanted to interview him about the company's innovative employee wellness programs. "Mr. Chen, your company has become a model for employee-centered business practices," the reporter, Ms. Williams, began. "What inspired this transformation?" Robert looked at the small teddy bear still sitting on his desk and at the framed photos of his family that now surrounded it. "I learned from a very wise consultant that taking care of people isn't just good business, it's the right thing to do." "And who was this consultant?" "Another CEO? A business school professor?" Robert smiled. "Actually, she's 4 years old, and she taught me that the most important business strategy is simply being a good friend." Ms. Williams looked puzzled, but before she could ask for clarification, there was a soft knock on the office door. Emma peeked her head in, followed by Maria, who was clearly trying to catch her daughter. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen," Maria began, but Robert waved her concerns away. "Perfect timing," Robert said. "Ms. Williams, I'd like you to meet my consultant." Emma walked confidently into the office and extended her small hand to the reporter. "Hello, I'm Emma Rodriguez. Are you here to learn about friendship too?" Ms. Williams shook Emma's hand with barely concealed amazement. "Well, hello, Emma. I'm here to learn about how Mr. Chen has made his company so special." Emma nodded seriously. "Oh, that's easy. He just started being nice to people and listening to their problems. And he fixed the coffee machine, which made Mama very happy." The reporter looked from Emma to Robert, beginning to understand that this unusual friendship was somehow at the heart of the company's transformation. "Emma," Ms. Williams asked, "what's the most important thing about being a good friend?" Emma thought carefully, holding Mr. Snuggles close. "You have to really pay attention to people. Not just pretend to listen, but really listen. And you have to help when they need help, even if it's just little things. And you have to remember that everyone wants to feel important and cared about." Robert watched as Ms. Williams frantically took notes. Here was a 4-year-old articulating principles of leadership and human resources that many business schools struggled to teach effectively. And, Emma continued, you have to say I love you to your family and really mean it. Mr. Chen forgot to do that for a while, but he remembers now. The reporter looked at Robert with new understanding. Is that true, Mr. Chen? Has this friendship changed your personal life as well? Robert nodded, no longer embarrassed by the profound impact Emma had made on his life. Emma reminded me that success means nothing if you don't have people to share it with. She taught me that taking care of your employees and taking care of your family aren't separate responsibilities. They're part of the same commitment to treating people with love and respect. Emma beamed with pride. And now Mr. Chen's children call him more, and the people who work here are happier and everyone smiles more in the elevators. It's like magic, but the good kind that makes everything better for everyone. As Ms. Williams concluded her interview, she found herself with a story far more compelling than she had expected. This wasn't just about innovative business practices. It was about the transformative power of genuine human connection. After the reporter left, Emma settled into her favorite chair across from Robert's desk while Maria went to complete her cleaning duties in other offices. Mr. Chen, Emma said thoughtfully, I have an idea for something new. I'm listening, Robert replied, giving her his full attention as he had learned to do. What if we had a day where all the families could come to work together, like a big party where everyone could meet everyone else's children and mamas and dadas? Then everyone would feel like they're part of one big family. Robert smiled at the beautiful simplicity of the idea. Emma, that's brilliant. A company family day. And, Emma continued, getting excited, we could have games and food and music, and all the children could play together, and all the grown-ups could be friends with each other. Not just work friends, but real friends. As Robert listened to Emma's enthusiastic planning, 1 year after Emma first knocked on Robert Chen's office door, the company headquarters buzzed with preparation for the first annual Family Friendship Day. What had started as Emma's simple suggestion had grown into something much larger than anyone had imagined. The main lobby had been transformed into a festival, space with colorful banners, activity stations, and tables laden with food representing the diverse cultures of the company's employees. Children's artwork decorated the walls, drawings of their parents at work, pictures of the castle building, and portraits of Mr. Chen with Emma that had become local symbols of the company's transformation. Robert stood near the main entrance, greeting families as they arrived. He wore a casual polo shirt instead of his usual business suit, and pinned to his chest was a small button that read, Chief Friendship Officer, a title Emma had insisted he adopt for the day. Mr. Chen, a familiar voice called out. Emma ran toward him, wearing a bright yellow dress and a matching button that read Friendship Consultant. She was followed by Maria, who carried a large covered dish and a teenage girl Robert had never met. Emma, you look wonderful, Robert said, lifting her up for their customary hug. And you must be Sophia, he added, addressing the teenager with a warm smile. Sophia Rodriguez, Emma's older sister, had heard countless stories about Mr. Chen over the past year but had never met him in person. She had been skeptical of her little sister's tales about the CEO who wanted to be friends with a 4-year-old, but seeing them together now, she understood that their bond was genuine and profound. Thank you for being so kind to my family, Sophia said with the formal politeness of a teenager trying to make a good impression. Your family has given me far more than I could ever give them, Robert replied sincerely. Emma taught me what real leadership looks like. As more families arrived, Robert was amazed by the transformation in atmosphere. Employees who usually passed each other in the hallways with polite nods were introducing their children to each other, sharing stories, and genuinely connecting as human beings rather than just colleagues. Janet approached with a tablet full of updates. Sir, we've had over 300 people sign up for today's event. The local news wants to do a follow-up story, and we've received calls from 12 other companies asking about implementing similar programs. Emma tugged on Robert's shirt. Mr. Chen, can you come see the surprise we made for you? She led him toward the elevator, where a crowd had gathered around something covered by a large sheet. We all worked together to make this, Emma announced proudly. Mrs. Henderson helped us, and Mama and Sophia, and lots of other people too. When they pulled away the sheet, Robert found himself looking at a beautiful mosaic made from hundreds of small photographs and children's drawings. At the center was the photo that had appeared in the business journal, Robert and Emma shaking hands on their first meeting. Surrounding it were pictures of every positive change that had occurred over the past year: the child care center, employees smiling in the upgraded break rooms, families at company events, and candid shots of Robert talking with workers throughout the building. But what moved Robert most were the handwritten notes scattered throughout the mosaic. "Thank you for listening. You made work feel like family. My children are proud of where I work now. You showed us that caring about people is good business." Emma watched his face carefully. "Do you like it? It shows how one little question can change everything." Robert knelt down to Emma's level, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Thank you, Emma. Thank you for asking me to be your friend." "You don't have to thank me," Emma replied seriously. "That's what friends do. They help each other become better people." As the day progressed, Robert found himself moving through the celebration with a sense of wonder. He watched his employees' children playing together in the child care center that Emma had inspired. He saw families sharing meals and stories in spaces that had once been cold and institutional. He observed teenagers like Sophia connecting with other young people whose parents worked in the building, creating relationships that might last for years. The most touching moment came when several employees surprised Robert with a presentation. They had collected stories from throughout the company about how the culture changes had affected their lives. Maria spoke about how the child care center had allowed her to take evening classes to improve her English. Jim Martinez talked about how the emphasis on listening to all employees had led to safety improvements that prevented workplace injuries. Administrative assistants shared how the new communication policies had made them feel valued and heard. "But the most important change," said Jennifer Wu from the accounting department, "is that this place feels like home now. We don't just work here, we belong here." Emma climbed onto a chair to address the crowd with Mr. Snuggles tucked securely under her arm. "I want to tell everyone something important," she announced in her clear, confident voice. "When I first asked Mr. Chen to be my friend, I just wanted someone to play with. But I learned that when grown-ups are friends with each other, amazing things happen." She pointed around the room at the families laughing together. "All these people are happier now. All these children get to see where their mamas and dadas work. And everyone remembers that work is just another word for helping people." The crowd applauded enthusiastically, and Robert felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. This extraordinary little girl had taught him that true success wasn't measured in quarterly profits or market share, but in the quality of relationships and the positive impact on human lives. As the evening wound down and families began to head home, Robert found himself sitting quietly with Emma in his office. The framed photos on his desk now included pictures from company events, and the walls displayed children's artwork alongside his business awards. "Emma," Robert said thoughtfully, "do you remember what you asked me that first day?" "I asked if you would be my friend," Emma replied, snuggling contentedly in the big leather chair with Mr. Snuggles. "And what do you think? Did I become a good friend?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. "You became the best kind of friend, the kind who makes everyone around them happier. You learned how to play again, and you remembered to love your family, and you made this whole building full of friendship." Robert smiled, thinking about how different his life had become. His children called him regularly now, and he had plane tickets to visit them next month. His employees looked forward to coming to work instead of just enduring it. He had learned to see his business as a community of people working together rather than a machine for generating profits. "But you know what the most magical part is?" Emma continued. "When you decided to be friends with me, you accidentally became friends with everyone. That's how friendship works. It grows and grows until it fills up everything." As Robert looked out his office windows at the city lights below, he understood that Emma was right. The miracle wasn't just that a 4-year-old had transformed a company culture through one simple question. The miracle was that in a world often focused on competition and individual achievement, they had rediscovered the fundamental truth that human beings thrive when they feel connected, valued, and cared for. Emma's innocent request for friendship had reminded everyone involved that the most important business of life is simply being good to one another. And that lesson, spreading from one friendship to encompass an entire organization and beyond, was indeed truly miraculous. The little girl who had knocked on a CEO's door asking, "Will you be my friend?" had shown them all that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of human kindness. In a world hungry for authentic connection, Emma and Robert's friendship had become a beacon of hope, proving that when people choose to care for each other, extraordinary transformations become possible.